Welcome back, and let's start with about 5 minutes of calm abiding. And in that time, or towards the end of the time, consider if you have any questions about the practice. We'll do a short Q&A, and then we'll be back into Tonglen with a stranger, Tonglen with a so-called enemy or difficult person. So just again, checking in with the body, checking in with the sensations, the myriad sensations, not getting caught on anyone, just noticing how all 5 senses are constantly feeding information to the mental sense, and noticing what proceeds from there. No judgment, meeting everything with gentle kindness. It's helpful to have an anchor, especially if you're a beginner, to come back to the breath if you get lost in it, in all of that shift, change, surging. Then come back to the breath once you notice you've gone off of it, very gently, yet very persistently, very precisely, with no judgment. And we'll just do this for 5 minutes. Now, as you can, bring to mind some of the teachings over these 2 days. Also your experiences. Efforts to use those teachings. And see if you have a question in your heart mind, even if you don't plan to ask it out loud. Maybe it's not a question yet, maybe it's a thought, a wondering. Sit and see what's true for you about that right now, with no judgment, no censoring. Another way into that might be, what do I find difficult? About engaging in this. What do I find delightful about engaging in this? Okay, your turn.
When we take refuge, and we take refuge in the Buddha, and you say it's both the historical Buddha, but it's also our own Buddha nature. I was thinking, I wonder if there are contemplations that help us do that, actually take refuge in our own Buddha nature. And then, as I was contemplating that, we then moved on to doing the actual Tonglen exercise. So this is really 2 questions, and you can answer either of them or both. But trying to give away what I most cherish, and I thought, oh, well, that would be my Buddha nature. But I thought, perhaps that would be something you can't actually give away in Tonglen, because it's just inherently there. Would I be nurturing some sort of wrong view to think that I could give it away?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well,
Do you think it's possible to give it away?
well, I don't really believe I have it. That's kind of my problem.
Oh, okay, now we're at
So-
the question under the question, good.
So that's why I'm curious about how do we take refuge.
You don't think you have Buddha nature?
The only reason I think I have it is because Bill tells me I do.
Well, don't, Bill. You're taking refuge in Bill, that's good. I do it too. But it's not really in Bill, it's what Bill practices and has been taught. Okay, so then you're taking refuge in the Dharma. You're taking refuge in Bill's Dharma, which is your Dharma, which is not Bill's, belongs to everybody. So, now what's your question now that we did all that?
Well, I still am curious whether there are actual contemplations one could do to help yourself take refuge in your own Buddha nature. And I'm also curious whether, I know I could do Tonglen and wish that somebody might recognize their own Buddha nature, but is it okay to imagine my Buddha nature leaving me and going to someone else? Or is that a bad notion?
Well, okay, so let's start with the last words first. There's nothing bad, no matter what comes up. There's nothing wrong, no matter what comes up. And I'm really glad you've brought those kind of words. Those are the way we get stuck, There's been a couple questions. There was one earlier in the day too. Is it okay to do this? Yeah. Whatever, you're the one sitting there. You're trying something out, right? We're all trying it. We're running the experiment. So if you're running an experiment, you run it, and then you see what happens. That's all it is. So I could say, run the experiment of, in Tonglen, giving away your Buddha nature. Just run that. I don't even know what it would mean. You don't either. Run it and see what it would mean. But I would say, yeah, someone's question earlier was like that. Is this wrong to do? No. Because there's nothing wrong to experiment. We're experimenting with our own mind. And we are the experimenters, the deciders. I am the decider. We're the ones who experience the results. So it's more open than that. Does that make sense? It's more of an open process. I think the only rule might be run the experiment and see what happens. Then see, because if we start saying there's a right and wrong, we get caught in all these things like, could I give away my Buddha nature? Well, they already have a Buddha nature. Even this is okay, but you're caught in a conceptual loop. So more is just, I'm going to give away my Buddha nature. Do it. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong to me. Is that, am I helping, or is it? Yeah, okay. And then the thing about, and I want to hear from Bill about these, and we all probably want to, but the thing about, is there a practice? What came to mind immediately is Nundro, refuge Nundro. Refuge Nundro, you do something, anything 111,111 times or 100,000 times, stuff happens in your mind and heart. I mean, you don't even know what's going to happen, but it happens. And you find yourself, that's what Nundro's designed to do. You find the self, remember that illusory one that we follow around and get in trouble with. You find it whipped this way, that way, through boredom, through confusion, through joy, through bliss. None of it lasts. you experience the impermanence of sticking with something that maybe makes no sense to you. I remember when I did the 100 in Kagyu, it's 111 because there's a thought that 10% of that you weren't focused, and 10% of that, and 10% of that, really you're hardly focused well for 90% there. You should flip it. But at any rate, there's an acknowledgement that when we do it, we're probably distracted a lot of the time. So when I did the Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantra, 111,000 times, a lot of the time I was going, this is so nonsensical. I'm like sitting on top of a little hill in Spokane, following this woman in a bald head and red robe, and doing this thing in Tibetan, or is it Sanskrit? I don't even know. It's Sanskrit. And over and over and over, through the snow, through the sun, through flu, through feeling great, through being hungry, through being stuffed full, and just going, God. But something happens. And it may be because you get it, I'm not in control of this. So these things like, is it good or is it bad, or still too controlled? Just relax, let go. This is why we need teachers and teachings, and when some kind of, they say devotion, but that's such a potent word, it scares some of us off who got raised up in big religions. A sense of respect and appreciation toward that teacher, and then I say, how'd you get like that? And she says, do this 100,000 times. Really? Yeah, okay, I'll try it out. I don't have anything better to do except drink and carouse around. And something happens. Is that, and so are there practices? Yes, just pretty much everything will lead you to refuge, and pretty much every practice will lead you to that open, to your Buddha nature. They're all aimed for that. Shine. It's leading you towards your Buddha nature, because first we have to see, what am I doing now? Oh my God, I'm doing this. Loving kindness leads you towards your soft heart. That leads you towards your Buddha nature. I really can't think of a single practice that won't lead you there, because that's what they're designed to do. People who did these and live within Buddha nature now said, do this. So, more particular, for me, I carry on my refuge nundro every day, most every day, at least a little bit. And it helps me, because when I'm going through it, I think of Shakyamuni Buddha. Wow, I love that guy. Then I think of Buddha nature inside of me. Wow, do I have that? Nah, I don't believe in it today. But that's okay, you just keep doing it. Could I have it? Do I think it's in other beings? How about that little doggy on the street? Yeah, I can see the Buddha nature in that one. So friendly, so uncomplicated. So you just work it. And then the Buddha nature, the ultimate, that which is beyond words, concept, that infuses everything, from which they say everything arises, the Dharmakaya, from which everything just dances forth, excluding nothing. Yeah, that too, you can think about that for, as Bill was saying, a flash. And when it gets all complex, drop it. We are, Lama Michael says that we're too clever, we're too smart, too conceptual. Not as a criticism, but just as that's in our way. So to the point where we can drop it, just do the practices, they will have effects. After that 90 days, we did our Vajrasattva all packed together, 90 days, 9 hours a day, nothing but, oh my God. It was amazing, we lived through it. And that everybody came out fine. And years later, you start seeing sometimes the immediate effects, like I couldn't go in a grocery store. When I got home, I tried. Made me sick. Lama Michael said he threw up after his 3-year retreat. But this was 3 months. But I just felt so dizzy with all the lights and music and ding dong, and went home and told my husband, "You're shopping." I'm not. I have to stay in the house for the next 2 weeks, which he would, I mean, he's very kind, so of course he did. But you don't know the effects, and I think I did that in 2004. I'm still experiencing those very effects from that. You never know, they don't stop unfolding. So that's a little plug for Nundro, by the way, but also just for carrying a practice every day. Just do some refuge every day and think, wonder about that. I have Buddha nature, flash on, yeah, I've got it. Then, I don't believe in it. Well, don't believe in it. No. Believe won't help. Okay? Yeah, Bill.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that there is no problem. If you think you have something, you can give it away. So that's fine. And if you think it's good, you can imagine giving it away. This is even if we can blow the whistle like good philosophers and say, tut tut, it's not actually a possession that we have, and everybody already has it, so therefore you couldn't give somebody a second Buddha nature. It's not like that. It's not like that. No, well, that just ruined your parade, which was this very nice gesture of giving the most positive thing that's even beyond your imagination. So,
yeah, very dear.
No harm, no foul. It's entirely good. But that said, the other part of your question, what contemplations? There are little things that we can do that just simply taking seriously some of the possibilities that open up in small ways in practice. Just the fact that we can be carried away and then see we're carried away and be free from that being carried away for an instant. Just entertaining that if I see I'm carried away with this kind of thing, and then maybe 2 years later I can see even more subtle way that I'm carried away. Then I can appreciate, even that too is not limiting. So I can start to appreciate deeper and deeper ways in which I can be not stuck. And there are a lot of ways we can talk philosophically about all these things, but for me, that's one of the most salient characteristics of Buddha nature, is this profound not stuck anyway. And so just being able to contemplate that possibility and see that it can go from, now I remember yesterday I got really, really mad and I didn't even notice everything that I'd done. But today I notice it. And then, this morning I got really, really upset and I didn't notice it till this afternoon. I notice I'm starting to get really upset. All these degrees of freedom, I think, are really important things to reflect on. And as we reflect on and begin to have more experience with them deeply, then a kind of confidence can grow. And without even needing to understand, kind of have a fixed idea of what it is. Sometimes, for some of us, study about it will actually be very helpful. And that'll give us some kind of sense of, at least I could explain this to somebody if I had to, if we feel like we have to explain something. For other people, I just want to know how to do it. I actually, all this, stop talking, please stop talking. It's just, it's just leading me away from it. That's a different side to it. And the practice of regard all phenomena as dreams, it's light on explanation. It's light on explanation. And I pointed out, it's not the same as the teachings where you might find an explanation that says all phenomena are illusory. It's sort of, you have to set that one aside, actually, in order to really do that practice of regard all phenomena like a dream.
Yeah.
It's just very direct. So just step by step, I think it's possible to, but even just seeing that even in one instant, there's some possibility for some degree of freedom, that's a start there.
Tora.
One thing that really hit me was, it was during a retreat with Alan Wallace, and he would lead us on some guided contemplations, which were always great. And one of them was just inviting us to, at least as I remember it, inviting us to just really search ourselves for what was our deepest wish, what was our greatest yearning, and that was like a glimpse into our Buddha nature. It's like that is where our wish, basically our wish for happiness, genuine happiness that doesn't go up and down, that is an indication of Buddha nature. And I thought I loved it because I could do it. I could have that yearning really easily.
Thank you. It's on. Last night I was reading a small book that Zopa recommended to me by Lama Tubten, called Transforming Problems. And there is a...
Lama Zopa?
yeah, Lama Zopa.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And there's a section in it which is called, let's see here, blaming the self-cherishing thought.
Oh, yeah.
And the description of what that is really appeals to me, sort of turning the arrow that kind of gets shot at me back around, or the spear that gets thrown at me back around. This idea of actually sending the impulse to blame myself back at the grasping thought. But there really wasn't a whole lot of explanation or description of practices, of methods. And I have heard of the slogan, banish all blame to the single source, or something like that.
Drive all blame into one.
Yeah.
It's one of the mind training slogans.
And I like that, but I also struggle with retaining the slogans. And I'm looking for a practice that's a little more, I don't know, direct. It's kind of hard to get more direct than mind training, I guess. But I'm just looking for a little guidance on how to start engaging with this practice, because I like it and it appeals to me and it sounds very simple, but I don't know how to do it.
Well, I want to bring it back to Tonglen, Matthew,
Okay.
which is, let me see, I had it there. It's a lot of what I've been talking about the last couple of days, framing the Tonglen, that it's about self-compassion, actually. That's what that is. And if you go at it any other way, you'll get caught in usual criticism, judgment, and blaming of self. Because you'll try and flip it, but it might flip you. This is true for all of us. So one of the ways to practice it is what we just have done, a couple of sessions of compassion for self, Tonglen with self. Because there needs to be some warm-heartedness toward the self before launching into, how do I say that? Well, for me, I'm just speaking my experience. Drive all blame into one is kind of a Green Beret type activity or ninja. I'm not there most days. Most days, if I can just find some little bit of compassion and stop criticizing myself, I could head toward that. Does that make sense? So, yeah, so that's what I'd say. Come back, get these loving kindness pieces in. Loving kindness, Matthew. Because that's what we need. And then when we get it from ourselves, which is from our own Buddha nature, when we discover our Buddha nature in there, which totally has no sense of criticizing anyone, competing with anything, comparing, never uses the weapon of comparison. Some therapist gave me that phrase once. Stop using the weapon of comparison, meaning on myself, like using it, always comparing, I'm better, I'm worse. Just drop it, because it is useless. So stop comparing, stop judging, just start loving, caring about, cherishing the everyday self. Now that's outside of the self-centeredness, which is doing the comparing and na. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sort of. I guess what it sounds like you're saying is, it's sort of a bit of a preemptive practice where you've gotten really good at watching and catching, and at the level that I'm at, it's still really easy for sending the blame back to just bounce back again.
Yeah, because you might start criticizing yourself for not doing it often enough or remembering how.
Because I'm still having a hard time telling the difference between the cherishing thought and me.
Yeah, and most of us do. That's why we have to do this about, okay, do the Tonglen with the wonderful good Matthew, who's really, you are primo. You're an aspect of the Buddha. You really are. Do that 100,000 times. Then we'll talk about drive all blame. You probably won't need to, but you'll already be done, you see. We don't have to go. Actually, when I asked you all, what's your thing that you're struggling with, I was watching and my mind said, well, I don't even want to do Tonglen. I want to do just plain old loving kindness. Plain old loving kindness. You can get all the way to enlightenment. There are people who have become fully enlightened from just Shine, which led them into Latang insight. Boom. There's enlightened beings through all of these. We don't have to make it complicated and take on 100,000 practices. We just have to do one. One that we become a master of. You know? Seriously. I remember one story about a practitioner who just learned all this stuff, Tibetan guy, and went to his lama and said, I can't stand this. I'm not going to learn one more thing. I want to do one thing. And his master said, good, choose it, do it. In a very short time, that person gained full awakening, because that was, for him, her, the thing. So we hear about 84,000 practices, and in the US, my God, right now it's a very interesting karma. We're flooded with information, but we have very little time to do it. And it's confusing us and stressing us. You know, my teacher used to say, it's like every day you go into the Dharma smorgasbord and you get sick because you eat a little of this, a little of that, the jello on top of the spaghetti, and, you know. She said, watch out, just, you know, pick something, pick some few things, do them for a long time. Maybe more than this life. You already got the seeds of all this stuff. So go to the one that speaks to you and do it. What? Good enough? Okay, one more question. Oh, we've got two. Let's go. We'll go for a while. I don't want to cut anybody off. Marcy, then Emily, and then Usha. Yeah.
I'll try to be briefer than normal. So I tend to go either, I'm usually totally dry or totally emotional.
Oh, good.
Like, I find it hard to be somewhere in the middle. But, so what I'm wondering about is, I guess my understanding is that part of this is to kind of break down that tendency to push away the negative and the painful always, and always grasping to the things that we want. But it seems like sometimes where I struggle with the Tonglen for self is that if I am really, like you said, moist and juicy, when I touch that part of me that feels suffering, it feels like I have this tendency to identify with it so much that it just starts to get bigger, like it starts to feel like a thread unwrapped. You know, it feels very out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's just something really fishy about that for me. It feels like, is there an antidote to, you know, you said there's an antidote to being too dry.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an antidote for when it becomes too, what I wonder is like, what's the other word used?
Yeah, I get
you
the
know,
question. So what would out of control look like? What's the experience of out of control? That you might cry?
Yeah, like just feeling like an amount of emotion that I think there's just like this real aversion, or it feels like it's getting too big or something.
Well, yeah.
And then I feel like I'm making it too big.
So there's some kind of fear there, maybe fear. You're fearing it will be too big. It won't stop. It won't.
Yeah, but well, I guess my question is, I feel like sometimes when I do Tonglen for myself, I generate that. Like I
what?
That bigness of emotion. Like I'm identifying, I'm getting maybe my thoughts, or I don't know what's happening, but it doesn't always feel, it feels sometimes counterproductive or something.
Yeah, if it feels counterproductive, well, it's tricky. It feels counterproductive, or you go with it and you experience later counterproductivity from it. So this is back to that thing, run the experiment. Sometimes when I do Tonglen for myself, especially as a child, because I had a quite abusive childhood with alcoholic father, mentally ill mother, so kind, so good, really, truly, but terrible situations occurred. I can feel a lot. I can feel lost in it. The question is, can I be, is every part of my consciousness lost in it? Or is there some part that's watching? if there's some part that's watching, you're not lost. Then the question is, can I keep going through this, through the tears, through the fear, through the nervousness? Just go. And if you can't, okay, I can't do any more. I really am. It's the whole dream is taking up the entire thing. Then just gently back out. Do some shine.
Where does the breathing out, like the joy or things that bring us happiness?
You would give that from you now. Like everything you have now, you would give to that suffering self. You would give her your dharma, your teachers, your moments of peace, your care. Is it getting clearer? Yeah. Okay. But we even, when we say, notice everything that comes up, well, notice the fear of, too much feeling. I don't know what too much feeling is. Sometimes I scream and cry, and I don't think that's too much in that moment because it's what's happening. If I stay with it, it seems very brief. It's like, okay, the way that children do, they fall down and have their tantrum. If you don't try and pull them out of it, if you just be there, it doesn't last very long. It lasts long because we try and talk them out of it, suppress it, Then it goes on and on and on. Is that making a little more sense? Yeah, good question. No. You seem like you had something like that.
Part of this is actually, you can tell that it didn't ruin everything because here you are, So things come up like that, and things that can seem like they're just too much can come up in the moment. I think it's very important to balance the taking and sending, and in the middle of something like that, something like the very direct practice piece that Pema Chodron suggests, where you breathe, you add some black smoke to kind of sort of highlight the fact this is already here. This is the hot. This is it. And then you just radiate, sort of, that's used the term ventilate, I think. Sort of ventilate the whole thing with this radiance of white light. You're not trying to get rid of that, but this is a way to have it be there, but as you say, note that you're not entirely taken away by it. So that it's a way of being in the middle of this and knowing that you have a degree of freedom in it. Mm-hmm. Our usual sense of freedom is, I want this to go away now, please. And when it does, we think, thank you, that's what I wanted. But that's not the practice of Tonglen.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's there, the fact that it feels a certain way, none of that by itself is an indication it's too much. If it carries on and the rest of the day, all kinds of things are going on, it's probably don't bring up things that start things that perseverate, that keep rolling out like that. Maybe that's an indication. But like I say, you're sitting here fine, so it's no problem.
Yeah, and you're thinking about it, and see, it's not out of control because you brought it here. Out of control is when I can't even figure out what this is. So anything that you do, like Bill said, that Pema Chodron open to the Buddha nature, just flooding you and out to the wounded one there. But you could also do anything that opens to that vast space, like, who says this is out of control? Who's that? You can ask any of the insight type questions. Where's this happening? Where's this happening? Where's this Tonglen happening? Here? In the middle? Over there? Where is it happening? So you can do any of the kind of flash insight questions just to pop it. We don't have to hone in on that suffering like and drill in. Yeah. Okay. There was a couple others. Usha. No, Emily.
We might go over this when we do the other Tonglen practices, but I just have a lot of trouble with like honing in on what people I'm focusing on, or what kind of suffering exactly I'm focusing on when I'm trying to breathe in the suffering of others, and then I just get totally overwhelmed, and I'm like trying to picture people that are hungry, but then I'm like picturing people in other situations, and then the whole thing, I just like have to stop doing it because it's not actually making me feel any compassion anyway, because it's like too vague. But then it's like, do I have to pick a specific person each time? But I don't really want to have to do that. It seems like a lot of work and like overthinking it, you know, like each time I do the practice, like pick a different person. And I want to be able to do it for strangers, but like I'm a really visual person, and I don't know, like my brain wants to visualize something when I'm doing that, besides like taking in like the darkness or the suffering. I don't know what to think about when I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm. So the mind gets kind of busy.
Yeah.
Sounds like it hops around.
Yeah, because there's so much suffering. I could be,
Yeah,
taking.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
So what happens when you do it for yourself?
That goes better.
Just do that.
Better.
Just do that.
That's enough.
Seriously. Just do that. It's more than enough.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to say. Everybody, is this the first time you've come to Tonglen?
No. What do you mean?
I mean that you've ever come doing it? You've been doing it?
No, I've been trying to do it for a long time.
Okay, trying to. And you've always had this kind of hopping around mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to come to this from whatever karma they had. For me, it was the first Dharma word that made sense to me. I went to a retreat. I didn't know what Tonglen was. I didn't know who Lama Michael was. I just went on the recommendation of my therapist to meet him. But the word captured me. So I must have had I'm assuming I had some past connection to it, not this life. But everybody's going to come into the Dharma with stuff from before, obstacles and forward-moving pieces from our consciousness. So we're all going to come different. And there's nothing that says, well, if you're going to do Tonglen, you got to do yourself and a stranger and a friend and an enemy, or you're not doing it. No, drop it. And more and more, as these 2 days have rolled by, I'm thinking all these things we're calling more foundational are part of Tonglen. Lama Michael puts them in here for a reason. And when Geshe Jumpa Tekchog, my teacher's teacher, wrote his big fat book, he puts all these in first too. So it's pretty clear. Tonglen's on top of those, okay? So go to the foundations over and over. The one about suffering, if suffering overwhelms, sit with the Four Noble Truths about it. Suffering is. What does that mean? The Buddha said suffering is, and it's supposed to be known. Where's the first place I could know that? What's my life been like? How have I suffered? That's huge. Most of us zip right away from that. We want to help Joe and Mary over there because it's further away and not so profound, not so scary. You see, we're already off the target. The first suffering is just taking on a body like this. Even you don't know someone, you know something very deep about them. They're human, they're aging, they don't want that, they're not choosing it, but you take this body on, they're going to get sick without choice. Don't even know which kind of sickness is, but everybody gets sick. Try and find somebody who hasn't been sick, you won't. They're going to feel confused over and over, crave over and over, get angry over and over. This is the nature of this construct. Everybody suffers like that who's a human. And then we're going to die. And most people will say, I'm not looking forward to that. You'll find a few realized beings who say, I am waiting for that moment because it's an opening. My consciousness will be free. I've been practicing for it. I'm going to a bodhisattva gram. And then I'm going to go to hell and get those beings, help them. Bodhisattvas pray. I want to go to hell next time if that's what's useful. Or next time may I show up in any form that's useful. I don't have a preference. If it's being a doggy, okay. Really, that's how they think. They're outside the box. They're not in this whole thing. But that's plenty of suffering just to start with there with yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, don't push yourself. Yeah. And be happy starting there and play around there a long time. Like I said to Matthew, 100,000 times of Tonglen for self. Okay.
That's another way to, one principle is keep it simple.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you can make it very simple to extend Tonglen to others, and instead of trying to bring kind of a whole, kind of manufacture a whole personality and a whole drama and the whole thing that's going on and get into that, start with, I identify this pain that I'm having now, and I know that others have that pain. So you can just start something, just, it's very simple. I'm knowing that, and I'm knowing this right now. I can be sure that I'm actually connecting in some way, some very fundamental way with the experience of others. So.
Oh, thank you so much. When my stepson was killed in Ecuador unexpectedly, violently, the thing that got me out of the incredible, just huge, like, oh my God kind of thing, was talking to my teacher, and she just said, join with every parent who's lost a 23-year-old boy around this world in wars, gang shootings, accidents, illness. Just join right now in your heart with them. Man, it just cut that pain in about half. And it was extreme. You know, I helped raise him from pre-birth time till that time. And it was extreme to have him suddenly gone, and in that way. And so, but man, that helped, and it was just instant Tonglen. There, you don't have to do a big take and send. It's just, who else has this? Oh my gosh, so many. It's back to that story in the sutra where the woman comes with the dead baby to the Buddha. How many know this story? Just raise your hand. Yeah, about half. Comes with the dead baby, and she's just beside herself. My child died, bring him back to life. I hear you're a miracle worker. Do this. And he said, okay, I will. Go to every house. Go and find a sesame seed from a house where nobody's had death. So she goes around the whole town. Of course, she can't find it. And in that process, she sees everyone suffers this way. So her heart softens, and they say she became one of his close disciples after that. Okay.
This will be quick, but when you do Tonglen, when you take on the suffering, there's a feeling like you know that it's kind of pretend. It is, you know, because it's scary to, you know, there's just this, in my mind, when I'm doing it, I know that I'm not really taking on the person's.
Right.
And so it feels like I can do it if it you know, because it's
not real.
Yeah, it's pretend.
Yeah.
And then, like, what do you do with that, or how do you work around?
Why do you have to work with that?
No, just okay. I don't know.
I mean, what? You want it to be real?
Because I guess
or what? I'm not quite.
Because then I feel like I'm not really being authentic because I am not willing to really take that person's suffering, but I can do it as just an exercise, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is that confusion about what's the effect of this and what's the purpose. So the purpose is to get yourself to see you're not willing to really do it. Do you hear that? Or is it confusing?
No.
As you continue with the practice, the willingness to actually do it, if that could happen, can grow. So my friend in the wheelchair, my dear friend, just car accident, boom, 30-some years old, paraplegic. I used to do Tonglen about that, and the whole thing in the Tonglen was me dancing right where you're talking about. Well, I'll imagine it because I know I won't end up in a wheelchair. I don't really want to be a paraplegic, but I don't want him to be a paraplegic either. I want him free of that. What if I could do that? What if I could switch places? Would I do it? That's the work right there. You're not going to end up a paraplegic, and I'm not going to end up curing him by doing it. But my exploration in here of where I set limits of what I would do to help people, even ones I dearly love, I get to look at and see them and soften towards them. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, that phase, that piece is a critical piece.
Mm-hmm.
And in that we can also then, because we're also doing taking and sending for ourselves, then we can go back to look to say, how willing am I just to be with my own experience? How resistant am I to my own experience? And when we can really begin to see that and be with our own experience, be with our recalling the suffering of previously that we didn't want, recalling, thinking about the suffering that will come to us in old age, or whatever form of death brings us. We will be with that. We won't get the choice of whether or not we're with it. There's some degree of freedom in our willingness to be with it and how we're with it. That's the spot where we have some possibility for freedom. And so this is another reason that we really have to work with ourselves first to really see those things. And then the more we're able to see into kind of all the little tricks that we play to want to get around, sidestep this, do this, get this other strategy, make it go away, take a pill, the more we can see through all that and see into the possibility that we actually could directly be with our experience and still have some degrees of freedom, then we can start to see what it might be to be with others in the same way.
Yeah, such a good question, because we won't always like what we find in this Tonglen practice. And I would say, if you like some things you don't find in your reactions, that's a good sign. You've gone underneath that, oh, it's so nice, I take suffering, and they're freed. You've gone beyond the surface level. Now you see, I don't want to do that. Even someone said, I'm glad you have that and I don't. Or I'm glad that's happening for her and not me. And you see that cruelty within yourself. I mean, I'm labeling it, but that disregard, be with it. Wow, that's in there too. Meet it with compassion. Where'd that come from? Where does that come from? Meet it, not analyzing, but just going, hello, you're scared. Like that, because that's how we're going to meet other people. Someone out on the street screaming and yelling, or your parent dying in agony. How are we going to be with them if we can't even be with what's in here? This is what Tonglen gets us going on.
that moment of really being with the, I don't want to be with that. You can have the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Please, let's not think about this anymore. That moment of discomfort, we go right back to taking and sending with ourselves, because that's our suffering right there.
Yeah.
So it becomes very,
So
kind of very immediate in that way.
yeah, and what we're pointing out here is you go for it in a certain way. I'll take on my friend's position, and then even play with, God, he gets to walk again. Even play with that. And then you could even see for a nanosecond, this only happened a nanosecond, like, I'm okay to be in a wheelchair for that. Then, no. And you just stay with yourself. And you stay with all of that. And when it gets too much, you go back to loving kindness, Zopa. Don't try so hard. Take it easy. You're fine. It's all right. Wah. Like that. You just work it. It's not a should or it has to be this way. Okay? The only purpose is to help increase our compassion. If the practice increases your clarity and compassion, good. If it's not doing that, other practices, okay, that get you ready for that. Okay, so we want to do 2 more. We want to do strangers, and we want to do, at least try them out. And we want to do so-called enemies. So I'm going to say, if you need a break, we're just going to press on. We just have 50 minutes left. You need a break, just quietly get up and walk around or go get one. But we'll carry on. Okay. I think I'm doing strangers. All right?
Maybe we should everybody just stretch for a
Oh, stretch. Stretch in place. Good idea, Bill. 2-minute stretch. Thank you, Tracy. So, if we try to start out each time with at least sort of a flash of, oh, wait a little minute, oh, wait a big minute, a medium minute. Thank you. So if we want to start out with this kind of, and we do, having this in the ultimate, vast, profound, unobstructed view, as Bill said, as Pema Chodron said, that can be a flash, flash into open, unobstructed being. Don't stay too long because we start making stories. So that's just this, boom. Beginningless, endless, timeless space. So, bring to mind a stranger. I saw a guy yesterday in front of the library. I can picture him pretty clearly because we said hi. Something like that. Someone you don't feel particular aversion toward, nor particular attraction. If you can't think of one, just imagine someone you're passing on the street. Or one of the neighbors here who you don't know. Now, here's another step into that more ultimate view. To visualize this person, you labeled them as a stranger. Other people label them that also. Some people don't label them that, don't even conceive of them as stranger, would find it odd to think of them as a stranger. Those people call them family, friend, enemy. So there's nothing solid about these labels, concepts, relationships. Very fluid. But to your relative mind, this is a stranger, and that's okay. Just look at the person. What's the same about your suffering and theirs? Anything? What could be similar, even you don't know their whole story? The common sufferings of being human together here on the earth at this time. What could those be? Now, first approach this with just simple loving kindness. You don't know them, they don't know you. But it costs nothing to say, may you be well, may you be happy. May you have a peaceful and happy home and heart every minute of every day. May that somehow occur for you. I wish that. May you be totally free of every kind of suffering. Suffering of anxiety, worries, fears, sudden changes, illness, need and wants that aren't filled. May you be freed from those. I wish that for you. And may you enjoy many things: success, abundance, health, fun, close, healthy relationships. May you have those. I wish you had those. And I'm happy to see that you have those. And may you live in equanimity and be free of all prejudice, all bias. May you feel equanimity towards all beings so your mind can be peaceful, no matter who shows up. I wish you to have that. And I wish you were free of every kind of suffering. And I wish I could take it on. I wish I could relieve you of it. I truly wish I could do that. Because somewhere in some past life, you've been very kind toward me. Maybe even this life. Maybe you do things I don't know that benefit me. Like you work somewhere that benefits me. You build roads, or you work at the power and water company. But somehow I'm quite sure we're connected through benefit. And I appreciate that. And somewhere in a past life, it's possible you were my child, my mother, my best friend. It's quite possible. Since we've been circling in this existence since beginningless time, I hold the view that at some time we were very, very close. And now I see your suffering. So imagine taking that suffering in with this black smoke on the in-breath. And from your heart pouring out beautiful moonbeams, cooling and giving everything this being needs. Not difficult, no problem. As the black smoke comes in, it melts the self-grasping, the sense of separation. that we carry just melted, gone away, not there. There is no separation. This is not a stranger. This too is a beloved one. And just continue for about 5 minutes with this. Taking in the suffering, seeing it's empty, giving out the goodness, seeing that it's also ephemeral, the joy of the person, whatever rises. It's just rising in the mind, passing away. No problem. Imagine this one being free of suffering. Imagine yourself being free of suffering from this beautiful wish to take it on. No separation. If it's become too complicated, go back to the first thought. I wish you happiness. Imagine giving to this one all your Dharma insights, all the effort you've put into the Dharma. Give them your teacher. Give them all your Dharma texts. Give them all your wisdom, so that they can learn what you've learned and they can be free. Give them away with no sense of loss, because remembering when we're giving, the giver, the gift, and the receiver are so deeply interconnected that there's no separation. Nothing's really given, nothing's really received. Yet everything that was given is received. Drop all thoughts. No trying to hold any visualization. Back to the breath. Or to your meditation with no object. Just here, this moment, already gone, next moment, already gone. Just experiencing whatever is here, gone, here. So in that short time, you could see that we went through all 4 of the immeasurables. I wish you this, I wish you that. And then we went straight into the Tonglen, so it doesn't have to be complicated. I wish you loving kindness, may you be well. May you be free from suffering. So it can be that, we can learn to mix the medicine cabinet. Do it all in 10 minutes. Okay. Brother Bill.
Again, we'll start just with that moment of openness. Resting back into awareness. The play of all appearances arising. Begin by recollecting how the cycle of suffering keeps turning on and on. Just a momentary flash on recalling history, all the ups and downs of civilizations, tides of animals that have come into existence and gone extinct. And in that large sweep, in any moment, it came down to individual beings going through just exactly what they went through in a unique way, just as we go through our life. Appreciating this movement of experience with suffering and pleasure coming and going. Give rise to the wish to be free of this, free of the being entrapped in this cycle. Give rise to the wish that all beings would also be free. Not ensnared by the experience arising. In this, we can turn our minds towards refuge in the deepest sense that we appreciate it personally. Whatever example or inspiration leads us to turn our minds in ways that we can appreciate the possibility for freedom. Recalling that all beings, including ourselves, have a deep yearning for well-being. Extend this to all beings. Begin by taking and sending with yourself, acknowledging that in our life we have been a source of suffering and difficulties for others, and have also experienced suffering and difficulties ourselves. And though we may wish to avoid all the difficult circumstances, and we may wish to hold on to all that we hold dear and positive, this simply does not happen. So take a moment to simply be with all the difficulties and challenges that arise in life, in your own stream of experience. And offer yourself the gift of that possibility of freedom and well-being. the gift of that deepest thing that you can yearn for. If it's a support, you can let this ride the breath. If it's a support, you can imagine yourself sitting in front of yourself. Proceed for a few minutes like this. Now, whatever difficulty or challenge is in your mind right at the moment, just imagine all the beings that have ever suffered, currently now suffer, or will suffer in this same way. Engender the wish that by my going through this, may they all be free. May they all receive that which is my deepest yearning. May they receive that fruition. May they be free of that particular suffering. Now recalling in particular someone with whom you've had a difficulty in relationship in some way. If you're not familiar with this, perhaps just somebody who really irritates you, not the worst possible enemy you can imagine, but somebody you might wish to avoid, certainly someone that you wish treated you differently. Now recall that in cycles of existence, beings have gone in and out of these kinds of difficult relationships. And engender the wish that all beings be free of such difficult relationship. acknowledge that you have been the source of difficulties and will no doubt perhaps offer difficulties to others in the future. Again, wish that all beings, including yourself, be free from this cycle. Now turning your attention to the person with whom you have difficulty. Imagine taking on the characteristic itself. Whether it's anger, deceitfulness, meanness, take this on. And offer your genuineness, your comfort, your moments of mental ease. You offer it, let go of any notion that there's any kind of territory that you need to protect and hang on to. You can imagine that they're free in this life and in all future lives of conflict and difficulty. Imagine them free. Imagine them comfortable. And then extend this so that the same well-wishing thought that you've engendered for them expands to fill space. For a moment, take on all that similar kind of difficulty. With one breath, and then with one breath, fill space with peace. Rest back into the space of mind.
Thanks, Bill. So that's how we do Tonglen, many different ways. Well, I'm so grateful. I imagine you are too. Really, how amazing having 30, some of us, each day, staying and doing this and affecting the world through our deep interdependence. We'll never know, but the waves have gone out. For sure affecting our own hearts and minds. So again, let's bring to mind those marvelous teachers, the mind training masters who worked so hard to see these truths, then write them down, then many translators, trips between Tibet and India and Nepal, and many centuries going by. So much effort. Then to our own teachers, huge effort. Oh my gosh, we can just see that with our dear Lama, who we hope gets some rest sometime. And with our teachers of teachers and on back, giving us this totally amazing opportunity, unbelievable. But we don't have to believe in it anyway. Unbelievable, we just live it. So let us do a heartfelt dedication. Which would be on page 22, but I'm looking at page 21 just to see what Mama Michael has to say about dedication. The dedication provides an opportunity to reaffirm our bodhicitta aspiration by giving away any benefit. We dedicate the virtues amassed not only to all beings, but also to shunyata itself, to ultimate bodhicitta. That's kind of funny. We dedicate all the virtues amassed, which are empty, to emptiness. So again, the giver, the gift, and the receiver. Not one of them exists without the other one. So I think we have a sense of how precious this has been, right? And let us make a, I like the word commitment for me, but that scares some people. So a aspiration, commitment, somewhere along that continuum to carry this on the cushion, off the cushion, can be so quick. You know my example. I swear at someone when I'm out driving and then say, may you be well, may you be happy. Someday I won't swear. I'll just say, may you be well, may you be happy. Slowly they're coming like this, and then that one will go. So it can be that simple. Seeing someone suffering, may everyone be free of that. Feeling suffering, may everyone be free of that. So we can do it quick, on the cushion, off the cushion. One thought is to, if it fits for you, if it's useful, to make a commitment that tonight you'll do one of these practices for 10 minutes, maybe longer. Add it into your evening. That way you don't lose the thread, because there's kind of a temptation. I'm speaking from my own experience. Oh, good, that's done. I'm just going to go to the movies or whatever. And it doesn't matter what you do, but watching that mind of, oh, good, that's done. Now I can get back to real life. We have those. I mean, I have that. Don't know if you do. But the way to kind of cut it a bit is just commit. I'll get on my cushion tonight, and I'll do one of these, whatever fits. Okay? So let's dedicate with all of our hearts. By this merit, may I attain omniscience. May the enemy wrong action be overcome. From this ocean of existence, the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, may all beings be freed. Not seizing as mine all virtues amassed, I dedicate them to the unsurpassed totality of what is, on behalf of all beings, none excepted. Yay. Okay. Yay. So a couple of thank yous. I know I'll miss some folks, but Linda Grove, thank you so much for helping this be. And then the team, Willa and Cynthia and Tracy. Who else? Willa, Cynthia, Tracy, Melissa streaming, and soup makers, Carolyn, Susan, Tracy, Cynthia, and all of us. Thank us for coming and being here. Yeah. Well, if there's any left, I'll help. So thank you so much. It really does take a whole team.
And I want to thank Zopa into tricking me into practicing this week.
I did trick you.
All these months, she said, oh, I want to do this 2-day retreat on Tonglen. Oh. And then a few days back, she said, you know, it would be really nice. I'm too tired. I can't do this.
I pulled on his sympathy. It was actually true. I didn't feel like I had the stamina, and I was right. So I'm on the edge. But yeah.
So anyway, that's an honest thank you. It's a way also to be clever and funny too, which I like. But thank you.
Yeah, we're getting better someday. At each other. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We've been surprised and pleased, at least I have, by how quickly Bill and I, who didn't really know each other and hadn't worked together, suddenly found ourselves just teaming up, and the ease with Dora too, although she doesn't like to say she's a teacher, but we don't know what that means when she's here and teaches. So labels, just merely labels. So it's been quite wonderful, and I've learned so much from Bill, and I want to thank you for saying yes and just jumping in with your usual wisdom and kindness. Okay, we're done. Go home, take your Tonglen with you. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow morning at 9 or tomorrow evening at 6:30. Your choice, but do come.